All right, so let's see. We got a bronze match to get through first. Took me a second to remember that's what bronze looks like.
Well, real life bronze isn't quite so orange. This is a little stylized, but the dead giveaway is that little star on the logo. If it's a star, it's one of the Olympic medals.
Ooh, I'm liking what I'm seeing already. Let's get to those picks and bans.
Yeah, fire away. This is Ryooo versus hunu. That's not something a newscaster says to warm up their tongue. Ryooo versus hunu. It's very hard to say fast. Thankfully, we don't have to say it fast. We can take our time. And I am very excited to see these picks and bans.
Yep, I am as well. The first ban out of hunu is library, which is normally a very popular venue.
We haven't been seeing much library lately, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, it's popular for everyone but hunu. They've banned library as much as just about everything else.
All right, the next ban from Ryooo, High Rise.
Yep, that's their most banned too. Both the players on brand.
I get that. I get the feeling. All right. Anyway, I'm a big fan of this first pick. This is the way you start a match with Taeyen.
Is it gallery?
It's
a gallery?
It's Taeyen.
No!
Oh!
Oh my god.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
All right, this is gonna be something.
Yeah. All right. The next pick, first one from Ryooo, is Ballroom. Or Ryooo.
Right. Also good.
Yeah. Good. This is good picks so far. The next pick out of hunu, Veranda.
I like casting Veranda. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And then the final pick. There we go. There's the gallery.
Oh wow, this is like a Kletos draft. Because
Yeah.
For one thing, not only do we get a lot of your favorite venues, but nobody loses Courtyard Chicken.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm working on compiling some actual points for actual Courtyard Chicken, and I don't know. I feel like if nobody picks it, then both players lose. That's my that's my opinion, because like you both fell off the cliff.
It's like a prisoner's dilemma thing. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm still learning from you on Courtyard.
Yeah, it's all right.
This should be a really
really don't
nice.
Want to ban Courtyard.
That's true. That's true. This should be a really nice, varied set. Yeah, all these games should be very interesting, and not just because both competitors are excellent, and because bronze is super competitive.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this draft. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens. Ryooo opening Ryooo. It's Ryooo, right?
It is Ryooo.
There's too many O's for Ryooo, but it's Ryooo.
Yeah, they get me every time.
This is fine. All right, Ryooo. Starting things off on the spy side of things, hunu on the sniper on Taeyen. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, Ryooo putting the O in superfluous. There are far more O's than are necessary.
It's him and KCM.
Yes, yeah, there's just too many extra letters. I feel like so many people picked usernames and then just kept pressing a letter, or their cat stepped on the keyboard and they're like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, this is fine. Ryooo starting things off as Papa Danger, the man with the cane. Little bit of a slow start for Taeyen, but in conversation with the seduction target, hits a quick green test for 45%. And we are underway.
And we have a pretty favorable shoji setup here, which is just to say not a bad one.
Yeah. Front set of statues are visible. Contact comes off. A pretty good contact, too. We've got one splitter, which is nice.
Yep, an SDA and a DA in, and only 2 people out. That's pretty standard. You'll take it.
Stepping into the back statues for inspects and the flirt. We should be able to get all 3 because this is in fact center statue. 96% off of the second flirt.
Now, I mentioned with the shoji setup that it's mainly just about avoiding the bad ones. The BB is kind of the same thing. As long as the SDA's in one of the conversations and the DA's in the other, that's really all you're hoping for. You're just avoiding disaster, hopefully.
This is too far into the conversation. We got a bug out of it, though, so there's that.
And it looks like Taft maybe gets a highlight for having possibly bugged, too. I think maybe we're more worried about Taft because Taft is the one next to him, but Ryo is so close to the center that they can bug through what looks like 2 people.
Yeah. Well, we've got the flirt done at this point. We were only able to get 1 inspect off of the statues in the back, or else we'd be done at this point. toggles the highlight, interestingly enough. I don't know what that means.
The highlight's clearly a little fluid here. Might be general suspicion. In fact, this is one of the few venues where I normally use my highlights in that very general way.
Ryooo just sort of chilling out in the front for a little while. Hanging out with his drink. Probably going to finish up with inspects, I would assume, at the front statues here. That seems to be exactly what's happening. Goes to the center next to Orange Sari, which is a little bit of an unusual decision, but there's a fingerprint here.
I think the idea is 2 center statues. Why would I do overkill for the inspects there?
There's a fingerprint here.
Yeah, that too. That part doesn't help.
That's the countdown. Does
Standard
he take the
Hunu
shot? He does take the shot. And hunu picks up game number 1.
That's just the standard thing from Hunu. It's, am I going to credit bug? Even if they didn't see it, and they might have, am I just going to say they could be done? You know, because they're done with inspects, they have the BB, and they've kind of been around. They've been within, I don't know, half the venue of the ambassador, so they could have bugged. And you're right, the fingerprint just bringing even more heat on top. It's just a little too much, and Hunu's too good a sniper for that.
Yeah. That settle in the middle of that conversation was a little bit awkward, but I don't think Hunu paid that too much mind, but there was just a little bit too much going on for Papa Danger to not take the shot on that, and Hunu gets it done as he steps into the spy side of things. It's going to be green on Taeyen as Ryooo steps into the sniper side in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And we have the all statue shoji set up, which is only maybe marginally better than the Switch. I'd say maybe not even as good, but again, it's not all books, and it's not 2 on one side and the front, so you're okay.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, though, that you need to keep track of fingerprints, even if you don't want to do fingerprints. Maybe especially if you don't want to do fingerprints.
This is true.
And it's also interesting that even if you don't get caught for the bug, it doesn't necessarily benefit you. Normally, if you get away with a bug and you're not a huge suspect for it, it's a huge win. But on Taeyen, if they're crediting it anyway, there's not a lot of upside to it.
Absolutely. Very slow start from Hunu here. Just chilling in this conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to leave. They want the ST to come to them, and now it should be obvious they're not going to. The double agent and the seduction target are in the other conversation. That's a very productive conversation to be in. You got to get over there.
Hunu, I think, wanted to get in close to seduction target, but wasn't sure if he could get in, so goes to the window pad instead. I think we can tell there's a little bit of a spot between Queen and Twin, but Hunu's not going for it, instead going to blue books. Getting definitely a fingerprint out of the deal, though, so that's nice.
Yeah, definitely a lot of slow play here early on from Hunu. Doesn't necessarily matter on Taeyen that much, though. You can get away with a lot very, very late. Look out for a late swap, though, too, by the way. Hunu does swap in about a third of the games when swap is active. That's a pretty high swap rate.
Finally picking up our first flirt. 2 minutes left in the game. 34% on that one, with an action test ignored, which you don't see very often at all.
Yeah, I sometimes do it myself if I know for sure I don't need the action test and don't want to risk the red, but this is your first flirt. You absolutely need it. There's a chance at a 2 flirt.
Especially so late in the game, getting the first one. Odd decision, but now stepping back into the blue bookcase, picking up the second flirt. This one actually does right-click again, but it's a white test for 68%. Now highlight at the blue bookcase, and we really just went there for the fingerprint, it looks like. Minute and 10 left to play. Seduction target is not available, not a single mission completion on the table. This is a difficult situation for Hunu.
Yeah, and that highlight was clearly just for the flirt before the book put back. That's just too much, and now with this time ad, we're already a huge suspect. I think Hunu is in big, big trouble.
You can't actually flirt before you start reading the book in a situation like that. It's an etiquette break. It's just too long a delay. Hunu now stepping into conversation with the seduction target after picking up a time ad, so we've got a little bit more room to work with, but the distance is too great and it's only 96%. Everything is going belly up for Hunu in this first game.
I don't know if it would have mattered or not. They're still in big, big trouble. They don't have nearly enough mission progress relative to their likely suspicion. There's going to be a green purloin, though. That's interesting.
Green Purloin could be the saving grace of this game. If someone picks this up and Ryooo doesn't know where it came from, he's probably going to feel obligated to take a shot somewhere.
Purloin's
It
almost
might be Smolman!
That's the best thing you could hope for.
It's Smolman!
I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Hunu's going to get shot anyway, though. Yep.
Yeah, he does indeed. Well played from Ryooo.
Yeah, and Hunu purloins almost as much as they swap, which is a strange sentence to say because it's almost always the other way around. So I'm not surprised that they went for a purloin there. And it actually probably was their best hope the way things were shaking out. That flirt before the book putback was just too long. And it was up front, visible, and they were the third person. The Amba left just as they arrived, so technically they weren't hanging out 3 at a bookcase for very long, but it was clearly going to be 3 because they arrived as the Amba left. So there's just every reason in the world for Ryooo to at least notice what is happening out front, catch them for the flirt, and at that point the game was basically over. Not the least which because Ryooo, by the way, is the top sniper in bronze this season, 75%, and you see why right there.
75%! Good gravy!
Yeah, Shep is second with 68, and that's a pretty big gulf between second and first there. I mean, that's perfectly fine. It's not mind-blowing because we see 80% in silver sometimes, but
That's
bronze
true.
is still pretty tough. Bronze is stacked this season, and that's really good. The spy and sniper, the spy win rates between Hunu and Ryooo on spy very similar, 38 and 37%. The sniper is the difference, 75 Ryooo, 55 Hunu, and that makes a big difference here on something like Taeyen because he was having trouble finishing, but he really just had to make that one mistake with the flirt of bookcases, and then Ryooo was all over him.
It is now 1-1 as Ryooo steps back into the spy side of things. Hunu on the sniper once more in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing. Can you sneak these spy wins by Ryoo's sniper here in bronze? And Taeyen is a great place to do it, and you're already 0 for 1. That's got to hurt.
Yeah. Not fun. Ryooo opening up the game at the green bookcase, getting all snuggly with the ambassador, but not taking the right click. Does, however, time it just right to slip in the ability to get a fingerprint as the ambassador puts his book away right before we pick ours up. Second fingerprint coming off of the briefcase right afterwards. Usually that happens in the reverse order, but that's already a fingerprint done like 30 seconds into the game.
It was so quick that if Hunu forgot to watch her fingerprint at all, it's just a free mission, and now you can either go silent or statueless, or you don't need the bug, but normally the bug's the one you want to take because it's not necessarily going to be seen. Ryooo has a lot of options. Yep, and if I'm them, I really want to think about rushing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. As a sniper, you very well might not credit that fingerprint at the green bookcase because you got there while the ambassador was still reading, right? You picked up that book like right as his went away.
Yeah, it was very close, and it's behind the shoji, and it's in still kind of the initial chaos.
This is a very, very strong position for Ryooo. 20% on the flirt, 2 missions done, only the 1 low light off of the contact. This is going to be a very steep uphill battle for Hunu. Second flirt comes off on a white test, brings up to 45%, and it just gets better.
I think I think people are paranoid enough about the inspects that you probably just want to get your flirt done and wait for a good bug opportunity because you still have 90 seconds, and on Taeyen that can sometimes mean 5 or 6 good bug opportunities.
Ryooo stepping back into the blue bookcase here to try to pick up another flirt. 79% is the current situation. It's going to be a 4 flirt, but we've got the time for it. Oh, there's a walking bug on the way back, but it got caught! And Hunu picks up another one.
That's a huge save from Hunu because it really felt like they were behind most of that game. The problem with these bugs, and we've talked about it, Tobo. We get the relative advantage of analyzing them in hindsight, and we can say, well, clearly, probably not a great idea, and that's really not a great idea on Taeyen, where you're going to get a lot of good bug opportunities. But in the moment, you're reacting. The Amba might turn a little bit. A million little things can happen. You only have a split second to decide, and by the time you have enough time to actually decide properly, you've already had to decide. So you get these impulsive bugs sometimes while the Amba's moving around. I get it. It's tough. But when you examine it in the light of day, slow motion, replay, all that stuff, you can see just a little too aggressive, a little too impulsive, too risky, given that you were probably in a dominating position there.
I don't know. Like, if you look at this bug, it's a very good setup. He starts moving, and the moment he does, the ambassador starts moving. And if you look at the sniper side, it's just a little bump. And that's what gives it away. You can't really see it very well. It's not a bad bug, even with the ambassador like body checking us out of the way.
Yeah, I think if the ambassador doesn't move, it's just a possible bug among many, many, many possible bugs in a standard Taeyen game, and probably a win there if the ambassador does not decide to get antsy. On the other hand, this is the kind of thing where you could read the ambassador's proximity meter and know they're about to leave. It's a tough thing to do. You're kind of keep a lot of different things in your head there. But I think with perfect information, you'd be able to predict that was about to happen.
Yeah, could be. But now, hunu up by 1 once again on the spy side of Taeyen as Pearls. Ryooo on the sniper in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
All statues again. I think that's both hunu games have been exactly like this.
I think so. Looks like we're going to open up the game in conversation with the double agent, and Smallman as the selection target steps in right next to us in conversation. This is a great opening position as we pick up the first flirt for 34%.
There are 4 early statue visitors, including 2 of them at center statues. If you're hunu, you have to be paying attention to this.
Yep, lots of early statue activity to play with. Although that means we haven't been able to get the contact too quickly. Now people starting to filter into conversation, but the SDA steps away now.
I think it's just as well. You want to monitor these early statue visitors, see who bumps around, see who bumps into Amba, see who's moving, all that stuff, maybe who gets a fingerprint, and you want to target that banana bread later in the game if you can.
Well, if the double agent hangs around, we're hanging around as well, looking for a timer flirt. We've got the time to wait to see if people filter into conversations. There's the flirtation cooldown expired. Here's the second flirt, another white test, brings us up to 68%, and now conversations are starting to fill up a little bit, but as soon as I say that, everyone starts walking again.
Yeah, and 2 of those early statue visitors are back at statues. General already had his inspects, but for Ponytail, this actually completes them, and you can see the highlights are for completed inspects, not just statue visits.
hunu is still hanging out in conversation next to the selection target, even though the double agent has stepped away. We might be going for a double timer flirt here, which almost never happens. Fingerprint off of an innocent drink, which is nice to see. Those are the hardest ones to track. Selection target steps away the moment the cooldown expires, but steps back into conversation at a bit of a distance, though. Contact comes off.
SDA is not in. Yup, and Ryooo notices it and adjusts their highlights on the fly. It's no longer for completed inspects, it's for real banana bread. That is a great, great on-the-fly decision by Ryooo.
Selection target stepped in at a bit of a distance as well, so it's 91% on the flirt. Not able to hit any of the green tests. 1 minute left to play. And we're going to side statues.
Yeah, if there's not a fingerprint, you're committed to going back.
No fingerprint yet. 45 seconds back in the conversation to finish up this flirt. Time is ticking faster than hunu would like to see, although we do have a second mission completion now. The question is there a fingerprint on a statue?
I think on the back set somewhere, but it was a while ago now. The question is, has hunu been tracking them? Do they know? It looks like they do. They're moving with purpose. This is either inspect swap or fingerprint inspect. Either way, it's going to be a tough shot.
The fingerprint's there.
Ryo's looking.
15 seconds, safety's off, the shot comes off, and Ryooo keeps things tied at 2.
It's a very, very strong spy game from hunu, I think. Very strong. But what's even stronger is Ryooo adjusting those highlights on the fly. I often like to think that if you had perfect information, perfect reaction time, all that stuff, that the best highlight strategies would be variable. They would change with game circumstance. It's just really hard to do that effectively with memory and all that sort of thing, and to make sure you get it right in the moment. But if you can, it is the dominant strategy, and we see why right here. Ryooo knew who to focus on late in the game based on who had the real banana bread and who didn't, in a way that they wouldn't have been able to focus if they'd still had the highlights used on inspect completes.
Yeah, that was a very powerful play coming out from Ryooo on the sniper side of things. There are precious few snipers in the game who are able to make maneuvers like that on the fly. Now we step into Ballroom. This is a map with much more variable cover as you get your blockage from other characters in the conversations. It's a low sniper angle, so it's hard to see the list on the tray, so purloins can be quite powerful. Let's see what Ryooo makes of this. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, purloin, very, very powerful with that low viewing angle. And if Toby moves around even a little bit afterwards, it can be quite a while until you can confirm that that list is gone.
Opening up with 51% on the flirt, nice and early, good start.
Worth noting that Microfilm, Ryoo's least completed mission by some margin, actually. Every other mission at least twice as often. Even Swap completes Fingerprint a lot, though.
A nice little bug coming around through the backside. Gets highlight for it, as it was a suspicious path, but you can't catch that bug.
No, you can't. And Bug, their third most completed mission after the standard Seduce and Contact 1-2 punch. So, makes sense there. They're bugging about half of their games when Bug is available, and why not when you can do them that well?
Does get that highlight, though. The path was apparent.
Yep. So here's the thing. Unless other characters distract hunu, they're going to be looking for, does this person behave like a spy who's acquired a bug? And if they do, they're probably going to be able to shoot. That's the significant thing here.
Ryooo really chilling now. Finally stepping away, looking for a second flirt, it looks like. Do we hit the 2 flirt too? That could be quite powerful moving forward.
That helps, but Ryooo is acting like a spy with a bug. So if hunu is able to dedicate attention to them, they'll be able to take the shot. But look, they're amassing some other highlights. That's kind of what happens here. If you get an early highlight for a possible bug, but it's not actually seen, and then other people just do things, it's very likely to be forgotten by the end of the game.
Into blue bookcase we go for a difficult fingerprint, but not able to hit it. I like the idea. With a minute and 30 still to play, a difficult fingerprint is a good option to take, especially if you want to stay away from heat.
Yeah, it's early enough in the game that if you hit it, you have a lot of options where you can avoid things like statues or maybe even go silent. It's very powerful when you can, but if you don't hit it, it's still early enough that you can do other things. Hunu's flashing off. They're pretty
off on the briefcase return. Finishing the return is not something that usually happens. I don't think hunu, never mind, hunu is absolutely willing to take the shot on this.
Yeah, the timing doesn't really matter that much or make sense to me that much, because if you're shooting them for the fingerprint, they're done, and if you're not, you should be waiting for at least one more thing. But clearly, just totally onto that bug, and as I mentioned, acted like a spy afterwards. They don't know they didn't hit the difficult fingerprint. As far as they're concerned, that could be fingerprint done.
Yeah, absolutely. And tracking difficult fingerprints is not an easy thing to do either.
No, it's not, and it's usually not profitable, but if hunu has studied Ryooo at all, they're going to notice that they fingerprint a lot, over 30% of the time, in fact, almost as often as they complete inspects. So it's one of Ryoo's favorite missions, and it's a much higher fingerprint rate than most players. So even if you don't have the numbers on that, if you've studied their replays, you're going to see a lot of fingerprints, and you're probably going to see a lot of difficults too. So hunu may be ascribing extra suspicion there, and if they can match Ryoo's sniper in this match the way they've been doing, they could actually score some points tonight.
Absolutely. It's been snipers trading wins back and forth again. Hunu on the spy side of things as Ryooo picks up the rifle in round 2 of Ballroom. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Ryooo's played a lot of Ballroom this season. They've won about half their spy games and 70% of their sniper games, but it's still a great place to finally score a spy win over him.
We have a long AI control out of Hunu and then steps into Windows right afterwards and spends a decent chunk of time there. Now steps into another innocent conversation. It feels like Hunu is really struggling to find an opening strategy here, but now the seduction target makes himself available, and Hunu pounces on that for 34%.
Yeah, I was a little worried there, but the fact that they jumped right in there helps a little bit. I think maybe just a little concerned about some of these shots, you know, clearly onto them for flirts and things like that. I don't think they need to worry about normal conversation flirts, though. It's the other ones, the edge cases, the book cases, things like that.
Very, very slow start from Hunu, though. Already down to 2 minutes and 15, and all we have is that one flirt. In conversation with Double Agent, at least, so if an opportunity presents itself, no, Hunu's just stepping away for a second flirt.
Yeah, doesn't want to BB yet, understandable. Maybe want to use it late in the game. Maybe amass some suspects, get a better feel for the party. A lot of arguments for it.
Green test on the second flirt brings it up to 85%. Minute and 45 to play.
And Ryooo has been watching that guest list pretty darn close.
Back into conversation with the Double Agent now. Hunu playing a very slow, very patient game, waiting for things to line up for him, and right now, it's just not happening, so Hunu is shuffling back and forth between the Double Agent and the seduction target. Flirt is now done, minute and 15 on the clock. What's the plan here? How do we win this moving forward?
Well, if they've been watching the replays at all, obviously we have the benefit of watching this replay as it's happening, but they really ought to think about doing something when someone's taking a drink, because Ryooo is zooming in on those.
Contact comes off. Under a minute now, 4 lowlights. This is a difficult situation. We have 2 completions now. It's going to be side statues, so no inspect swap at the end.
And I don't see how we're going to finish here.
It's definitely being watched pretty closely.
Yeah, that's the problem here, is that Hunu seems to continually be a big suspect without big progress.
Green swap! Remember what I said about not inspect swap?
A highlight is nearby. Wheels. Is Wheels going to take it? No, Wheels is going to walk away and not get pulled over to do the swap for us. That's the only highlight. That's the one we wanted.
Oh my god, we're going for a purloin instead of the other inspect! Take a highlight for it. Statue is pending, Lowlight grabs it, Lowlight swaps it, Hunu gets shot, and we're tied at 3.
I don't think the purloin was actually seen because Ryooo was just waiting for the swap. They actually did not make the standard mistake. The danger when a Lowlight takes a statue is that they don't look at all, right? But in this case, was so suspicious just for the timing of the approach on that statue that they made sure to look even though a Lowlight picked it up. And you could see Ryooo struggling with their camera to make sure they got a view. Taft picked it up, which is actually one of the better things you can hope for other than a highlight, other than a real suspect doing it, is at least you get someone large. And it blocked it for a couple extra seconds, but not nearly long enough. Ryooo was all over it.
My favorite thing here, I love this so much from the sniper side of things. If you look at this ending, it's Hunu grabs the drink for the purloin. Ryooo, the first thing he does is highlight Hunu. The second thing he does is try to get the look at the list, can't get a look at it, and just goes, this isn't important right now, I need to see this statue.
Yep. And I like the highlight too. The highlight is preparation. It's saying, I need to be ready to shoot this person, and there are 2 twins at this party. and I haven't distinguished them yet. So I'm going to highlight this so that if I have to come back over and one of the twins has moved, I don't have to hesitate and shoot the wrong person because I'm only going to have a few seconds. So that is planning. That is saying, what can I do while I'm waiting for this green swap to go off? I can distinguish the twins. That's the one little edge I can give myself. It didn't matter because one of them didn't move, but imagine you come back and one or more of them has moved. That would be the nightmare scenario. Ryooo guards against that possibility, highlights the twin, takes the shot, and you see why they have the top sniper win rate in Bronze so far this season.
Yeah, Ryooo has been playing incredibly well on the sniper side of things. It's going to be very difficult to break, but now he's in the spy shoes. Let's see what hunu can do with it. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And hunu's been matching them blow for blow. That's really the crazy thing here. As I mentioned before, they had similar spy win rates, but Ryoo's sniper rate is about 20% higher.
Instant swap! I don't think hunu was able to get a look at that.
I mean, it was technically on screen, but the question is, how confident are you going to be? And I think this is going to be very much like that early bug in the general game. It's going to be, okay, what you need to do with sniper is you need to say, assuming that's the swap, how would they finish? Do they act like a spy the rest of the way? Yes or no? That's what you need to know. And if they do, you have to be ready to swap. And if it's an AI, well, it's just bad luck. Let's see here. Yeah. Ryooo is, they're going to get a flirt in early. They're not going to try to finish inspects early. I think this is always the question. Do you keep the pressure on with that early swap, or do you try to lay low for a while? Because you have to make a determination about how likely it is that they burned you for it.
Well, we got the swap off, we got a pair of inspects, and we got the first flirt for 34% just now. Lots of time to work with, but we have to play this very carefully from the spy side.
Yeah, how do you want to finish here? Even going back to statues after the banana bread's gone off is going to be pretty perilous. So the question is, can you find another way to finish? It's really, really risky to go for that kind of swap because the types of games you can go for now are so narrowed down if the sniper is on their game. And so far, hunu has been.
2 minutes left to play. Timer flirt comes off. Another white test brings us up to 68%. So unless we get nice and snuggly, we're going to have to hit a green somewhere.
Yep, and that's not the problem, though. The problem is, how are you going to finish otherwise? If that sniper's crediting the swap, how are you going to finish? Maybe you're just slowly trying to finish the flirt and pick your spots, giving them just enough time to sort of forget and talk themselves out of the idea that it was a swap.
Oh, just barely missed the pad. Might have even been able to get the last flirt off in that amount of time, but it doesn't wind up happening. We have to wind up chasing over the conversation. Now the flirt gets done, but it's a little bit more obvious than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually kind of a rough turn into that pad as well. I think it was almost like a last-second thing, like, oh, geez, I could get the flirt in right here. But we get it done in the next conversation anyway. There's still plenty of time, especially because you already have that hardtail done.
1 minute and 5 left on the clock. Looked like maybe wanted the double agent there, but winds up at statues. A little bit difficult to tell the intentions.
We are going to finish inspects here, and by the way, if you want a clue as to how suspicious hunu is of that swap, they're still watching Purloin very, very closely, which maybe indicates that they're not positive it's taken place, because who would Purloin after that? We did get a flash onto Irish, though. The completing of the inspects is a big deal. I don't think we're going to survive Banana Bread now.
I don't think so. Inspect done on a 1 cycle, and safety goes off for a second. We are now into the beep beeps, no contact yet, but as you were saying, we might not be able to get it off. Oh no, if this is supposed to be a fake. No, it's going to be a Purloin instead on a green test. 15 seconds. Is it going to get taken in time?
Big test for hunu right here.
It's gonna be tight. That's maybe half a second of overtime. That's not enough. Can't see the list. Can't see the list. Does he take the shot? He does not. And Ryooo breaks serve first.
Kletos, if we can take a look at a replay here, I would love this. After Alice takes, let's see, about 8 seconds, you can see Toby actually lets the tray sit out for a second. Hunu zooms back out, and if they stay zoomed in, when Toby leaves one conversation and goes to the twin in the next, there are several seconds where Hunu could have seen the list. Instead, the tray goes down, then Hunu zooms in, and by then, Whether or not the list is there is no longer visible. There were 2 precious seconds where Toby switched conversations. That was his chance to catch it. That was his chance to catch it. And why would you not be looking there if Irish really is your top suspect? That's the question. And when they wait to look for the list and the tray goes down again, they spend another few seconds trying to determine whether or not it's gone. And that is what swung the game.
SpyParty is a game of inches, is what I always say, but this time it wasn't player inches, it was Toby's hand inches.
The angle matters so much. Toby, he can be so fickle about this. There are just a couple of seconds there where you could nab them. If you are zoomed out during that, the game basically ends. But again, we saw the flash onto Irish at statues. That indicates top suspect. If they are top suspect, then you need to be all over that reject, and you need to make seeing that purloin your top priority, I think. There are a lot of people moving around late at the end, so the question is, was Irish really your top suspect, or was she one of several? If she's one of several, it's more understandable, and if you're Hunu, more frustrating.
And now, Hunu is tasked with answering back against Ryoo's sniper. Definitely not a situation you want to be in. Let's see if Hunu can make the most of it. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
I mentioned that Ryoo's sniper win rate in bronze was 75%. That means they lose 1 out of 4. This is Hunu's 4th spy game, and boy do they need that 1 out of 4 right now.
You are not wrong. Opens up the game over to the seduction target to see if he can pick up an early flirt, as is the usual. Does not hit the green test, winds up at 34%.
And Ryoo's doing the same thing. A lot of emphasis on drink takes. A lot of emphasis. Trying to guard that.
And he steps away into an innocent conversation. A conversation by himself with nobody else there, in fact.
This is a very slow start. We've seen this from Hunu in all these games. It's worked fine for them. They've gotten near mission win countdown anyway with a late rush. But it's forced them to make a lot of tough decisions. Oh boy!
The bug around the back!
I don't think that was seen at all. The ambassador just bounced around. The bug there is so powerful, and Ryoo did not have a great angle on it.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty, Hunu. That could be the ticket back into this match that Hunu needed. This was the spy game that had to happen, and look at how it's starting.
That was absolutely huge, and now you just need to play a nice, clean game. You absolutely cannot afford to time out there. If they're willing, if they shoot you for that bug, so be it. You've already got it. I think you have to behave here as if you're not a suspect for it, and you just have to complete standard Softail missions.
Speaking of which, stepping into statues, looking to pick up that first Softail mission, but we only have 61% after the second flirt.
2 white tests, I think, on the inspects. Oh boy, you're gonna need this green. You get it.
Hunu is having a very difficult time hitting green tests this match.
That would have been a heartbreaking way to lose on a 3-cycle at statues after maybe getting away with the bug. We get a standard statue highlight now. The BB is going to be a big test, but I think there's a really good chance Hunu can win this and take the spy win right back.
It's going to be a little bit tight. 50 seconds to play. We need a green flirt and a contact. We are in conversation with the double agent, but she leaves us! No, why do you leave us?
You cannot afford to waste this time either because you need 2 flirts.
Hit the green test. It's 95%. Hunu, you had this game in the palm of his hand and it's slipping away.
Double agent is not entering conversation. How are we going to win here? They can still enter. There's plenty of time. We're being very aggressive about the flirt. Where the double agent goes next will determine the outcome of this game.
Back in for the flirt. Flirt is done. Double agent goes to nowhere good. It's 8 seconds to play. It's going to have to be the purloin, and it's a white test. It's going to be about 5 seconds of overtime. The tray is visible. The shot comes off. And Hunu cannot convert.
Oh, goodness. That's so brutal. Look at the double agent in that replay. Walk around the conversation. It looks like she's going to go to the right of Hunu. Then it looks like she's going to go to the left. She goes nowhere. She goes to books. Who can think about reading at a time like this? Oh, God, terrible. Out for the entire 40 seconds. But here's the thing. We were taking our time a little bit. We could have gotten Flirt done earlier. We could have Purloined earlier. We could have gotten the BB done immediately. Just laying a little too low early in the game meant that even when we got away with the bug, we couldn't capitalize. That is rough.
That is rough indeed. And now, after having a game basically stolen from him, Hunu is facing a 3-5 deficit, stepping into the sniper side of Veranda. Ryooo on the spy in 3, 2, 1, playing it. Ryooo opens up in conversation with the double agent, which is an unusual decision on this map.
Banana bread.
Contact comes off. 3 lowlights.
That is not much. Yeah. Not much at all. And I think we might have missed some.
Yeah. Not bad. Ryooo into green bookcase now. Hits the green transfer on the animation, so we've got green microfilm in pocket. Ryooo now stepping around the other side to look for that first flirt. Has a bit of a close call with the ambassador there, but not a situation you'll be able to right-click in. Ryooo steps in the conversation and gets 51% off of the first flirt.
Yeah, and we've got the easy, quote-unquote easy part of the microfilm done. Green is much easier to get away with than red and blue. So not really clear how much mission progress we really have because the mission is asymmetrical on Veranda.
Well, we'll find out, I suppose, as Blue Book is something we step away with. We step into conversation with the seduction target up to 82%. Back in the blue bookcase, here comes the transfer. It's a green test while Hunu's out on rotation.
Yeah, and that's what it is. The key there is because you've already done the green, the timing on the blue is everything. There are so many things that can happen on the left, and they picked a pretty good time. There was a lot going on over there. Probably didn't even need the green, but we got it anyway. And now we're going to have a lot of mission progress with 2 minutes left on the clock.
Ryooo picks up a highlight for statues, but is also able to pick up a fingerprint and a pair of inspects for his troubles. This is looking pretty good for Ryooo so far.
Yeah, pretty darn good. I think just timed that microfilm so well, and we have soft tail progress across 3 different missions now. It's really hard to imagine we're going to get shot for just finishing them if we are at all subtle about it.
2 flirt gets done. That's a 3rd mission completion. We are a fingerprint and an inspect away from victory with 1 minute and 20 left to play.
Normally, Ryooo would be really suspicious to a good sniper just because they're moving around so darn much, but they've picked the perfect game for it because the party in general is bouncing around.
Goes for the fingerprint and the inspect at the same time, and Hunu is on top of things, takes the shot, and gets back within 1.
Maybe just a little too aggressive to try to combine the 2. I understand how tempting it is, but both missions at once, if they're tracking either properly and they're even remotely suspicious of that microfilm, they're going to take that shot. I think if you do those 2 missions separately, it's a much, much tougher shot, especially if you time them well. But in this case, Ryooo just can't resist, and Hunu is sniping very, very impressively. And it's a good thing, too, or they'd really be in the hole the way Ryoo's sniping.
Yeah, that is an impressive shot to take from Hunu. Ryooo was playing that very well and still couldn't slip in under the radar. Now Hunu's back on the spy side, still needs to find that spy win against Ryooo. even after that beautiful position that he found himself last time. Let's see if he can do it on Veranda instead. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
hunu sniping so well, keeping it alive. They still just need that crucial spy win. Obviously lost that heartbreaker on Ballroom, but Veranda not a bad place to try as well.
That was some of the most unusual AI movement I've seen at the beginning of a game.
Yeah, I almost said awkward take control from hunu, and then I saw it still said spy AI control.
Yeah, I know, that's what it looked like.
Awkward no control.
Even worse.
Yep, it's all the downside, none of the benefit.
Picking up the first flirt for 34%. Man, hunu is just not hitting his green test tonight.
Yeah, and it's absolutely mattered, as we mentioned earlier. It has really come back to bite them at the end of some of these games.
Man, this goes for the briefcase ahead of the statue, so grabs one fingerprint off the case and another still hot on the statue. hunu wisely doesn't go for it right away.
Fingerprint is hunu's least completed mission, just by a shade, less than a percentage point lower than microfilm. But on Veranda, you really have to think about doing missions like microfilm and fingerprint because they're a lot more viable here than most other venues.
Indeed, indeed. hunu pulls out a green book. So really trying to delay that statue fingerprint, if he was even paying attention to it. A little bit of bouncing around the front. Winds up in conversation with the seduction target. Bit of a delay on the second flirt, waiting until it's his turn to talk. Another white test, 68%. Green book still in hand. Double agent steps into conversation. So that could be very useful. Here's the contact coming off. It is a white test, but that doesn't really matter on this map.
And the longer we hold that green book, the less likely it is going back into green because we don't really have time for that anymore. That's a lot of lowlights, though. I mean, 4?
4? 4's not too bad.
Actually, yeah, I think I was thrown by how quick they were.
Ignored at a distance is 91%.
That's
wow.
Straight. Yeah, that's twice hunu's done that. I actually wonder if is there like a mouse problem? Are they specifically worried about a red test?
Very delayed bug attempt coming into green bookcase there. I thought he was just going to tuck into red and make sure he got the bug, but instead wound up getting neither, as the bug doesn't take because he delayed the right click so long, and the book goes back where it's supposed to be.
That's very strange, and we're seeing more and more problems here with the pacing. It hurt them a little bit last game, reduced their options, put them at the mercy of the double agent, and now we're just going to have to rush, and there's currently no indication from earlier games in this set that that's going to work against Ryooo.
This is not a good situation. 45 seconds to play, progress on 3 missions, but 4 still needed. Not able to get the seduce at the statues. We're just going to grab the inspects and the swap apparently as well on the front statue here. That's unusual enough that it might not be caught, but safety off on a couple of different people.
Yep,
in
didn't see the fade.
Succession. There's the flirt done. I think the quick talk there was enough to take the shot off. And Ryooo is on top of things once more from the sniper side.
Now, I mentioned that hunu swaps a weirdly high percentage of the time, over a third of the games when swap is active, and on Veranda, you got to figure that's the time they're going to do it. They do, and it sounds like Ryooo, not actually sure if the fade has it down to 2, but as you mentioned, at that point, it's like, who does the next suspicious thing? It's General with the insta-talk, and that's reason enough to shoot. If they'd held, and if Twin had talked, and they'd found, say, a difficult fingerprint or something, would they have still been able to take that shot? Was hunu actually getting kind of close to that needed spy win? We're never going to know because they insta-talked and got shot, and they still can't find a spy victory against Ryooo, and we're running out of time.
I think it's very possible hunu just forgot he needed a 5th mission.
I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot going on there. They still had plenty of options, and Swap's pretty powerful. And as we noticed, even if it's down to 50-50, those aren't bad odds.
All right, well, here we go. It's 6-4. Ryooo has 2 match points to play for. Hunu has a little bit of fighting back to do. Fighting for a draw, starting from the sniper side. In gallery. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Ryooo has done really well in gallery. In just a handful of games so far this season, they've won all 3 of their sniper games and 2 out of their 3 spy games.
Well, now, that was not a lengthy game.
No, it wasn't.
Just want to watch it again?
Yeah, let's watch that game 2 or 3 more times.
Let's watch it again. Let's watch the game again.
Roll it. This is the real salty run back.
Yeah.
We're gonna run back the exact same thing. Wow. Okay. I mean, look, you can't really criticize too much. It's cheese play. It's an aggressive play. You either get away with it completely and probably win the game, or you get burned. Here's one of the problems too. A third AI was approaching the bookshelf. You're a third person at the next bookshelf too, and you started with a drink. So let's actually try to read an actual little bit of analysis into what's just an aggressive play.
Yeah, you
don't
do that with a drink start.
Right. Number one, I worry that maybe this was the decision before the game started, and then when you get a drink, you don't reassess it, maybe? Something like that?
I don't know. I think it was probably seeing the spawn and deciding to go for it and maybe not noticing he had the drink. And
that could be it too, yeah.
When he saw he did have it, just deciding that I spawned close enough to go for it.
Yeah, either way, not reacting to the drink. There's 3 at shelves green, right? Then there's 3 at shelves blue. So there's so many reasons to look. And again, by the way, even if you don't think it's a big deal, it's obviously a little atypical for the AI to squeeze on there. So just the mere fact that we've talked about it this much means it's potentially noticeable, whether you think much of it or not. So there are 3 basic reasons not to do this. It happens anyway, and Hunu's all over it, to their credit. Hunu has reacted really well in the time of chaos so far.
Yep, and there's also basically no cover in the back conversation currently. Just because that's, just how the AI happened to start. Sometimes
usually if the left half of that conversation is full, you're barely even seen at green. Yeah, absolutely. And there's only 1 person at statue, so they're not doing housekeeping. The ambassador's out front. Yeah, that's just that's rough all over.
And there's 1 more game to go. Hunu at 5, Ryooo at 6. Hunu fighting for a draw, Ryooo fighting for a win. Hunu on the spy side, Ryooo on the sniper. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
SpyParty, man, it is such a mix of game planning and reacting. It's both. You can't sell out on either completely, and that's a perfect example of that.
Picking up a first flirt out at the front windows. That's a good place to do it.
It's not bad, and flirt, very dangerous, very easy to mess up on gallery, and we've seen Hunu struggle to complete flirt and other missions in general all night. So you can see they seem a little more determined this time, with no more spy games after this one to try to secure a point in the standings, determined to get that flirt done early.
Hunu successfully tangos with the ambassador mid-match and doesn't have it look like a spy thing.
Yeah, it doesn't get a bug either, but that's okay. It wasn't a good time to even try.
Unfortunately, we're in conversation with the suspected double agent here, so even though this is a glorious conversation, we're not going to be able to get a contact out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer to see a full conversation in the back and front on gallery like that, and to be in the wrong one relative to the DA or SDA. That's brutal, because if you're in the other one, you'd absolutely take that contact.
Well, Hunu stepping into statues relatively early on. Going to pick up a pair of inspects. Two minutes and 10 left to play. Lots of time to play with.
The first statue visit in gallery means so little. It's all about whether or not you finish.
Picks up a briefcase with no fingerprint available on it. Now stepping out front to see if we can pick up a second flirt. We're a little bit behind the curve now, but the double agent steps in with us. And if we can get these people to stop looking at art in there, we might be able to get a good contact out of it. Second flirt brings us to 68%. Just takes the contact anyways.
And that's a pretty high number of lowlights, but it's not crazy for gallery. It's not crazy for gallery at all.
5 lowlights on the table.
Yep, and we have about 8 people who could have done a reel, and that is almost as important, and it's actually pretty good.
Hunu stepping back into conversation to finish up this flirt. Gets exactly that. 1 minute left to play. Inspect swap is on the table.
Yep, less than a minute though. Anyone completing their inspect, especially with their back to the sniper at the end of gallery, is going to get stared down. Ryooo has been very cool-headed in the end game so far.
And it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. Here we go. Hunu being watched like a hawk as he picks up this statue. Gets a good look at it as it comes back down again. There's the swap coming off. Cancels the animation! Safety's off! There's the shot, and Ryooo gets it done.
I think Hunu made it a little too easy for them. It would have been a very tough shot for Ryooo. They might have taken it. I think they probably would have, but they were very much on the verge of having to shoot without seeing that statue. That's the whole point of that move, is to force the sniper to make that decision. Obviously, if you can do it when you're not even a suspect, you just get away with it and they never even look. But the fallback is they might have to shoot without looking. You got lucky. Sheik did not hold it over his head or make it obvious or something. You timed the swap just right. You did everything you needed to do except force the sniper to make that awful, awful decision at the end, and it saves Ryooo from giving up a point to Hunu. 7-5. It comes out to the same thing as 7-0, and it's a tough loss for Hunu, who almost had a spy win and almost had a standing point against one of the top snipers in bronze.